Nice peaceful start to the day. You can see that it's snowing outside in Northampton, England. There's the Moana figures. So I'm very excited to be doing my first Year 7 video. It's going to be on the connection between Buddha and Finding Nemo. So first of all, let's go and have a look at Lord Buddha. Peace be with you, Lord Buddha. The word Buddha literally means awoken one, somebody who has awoken to the truth. Right at the back there, you can see Shiva, the god of death and destruction, because death is seen as something which is a natural part of life. Down here, we have, behind the Om symbol, Unicorn Kitty. Just a minute. Oh, the head's come off. I'll have to stick that on later. And here we have Krishna, who is the incarnation of Vishnu. Incarnation means coming down on the earth and helping everybody out. Let me sit down. So, you will be able to make links between the life of the Buddha and Finding Nemo. Explain what Buddhists believe about suffering. So, similarities, that's what we're looking at. Not the differences, but similarities. One of the first things that I would do with my students in the classroom was ask them if they think that their parents can ever be a little bit overprotective. Have a think about this yourself. Are your parents ever a little bit overprotective? Some of my students said yes, that they weren't allowed to go out on their own, and they could understand why, but they still felt they wanted the freedom. Is it a good thing for the parents to keep their children kind of shut up in the house all of the time and not playing outside? That's one of the things you can kind of think about. Hopefully, you will have already seen Finding Nemo. If you haven't, then please do watch it, because then you will understand what the connections are between Lord Buddha's experience. Well, we're actually going back before he became the Buddha. He was a prince called Siddhartha Gautama. So, think again, how much do you think a parent should protect their child from suffering? It's interesting that the director of Finding Nemo said that the story was written because he was actually at the playground, and his son, he was worried about his son or daughter getting hurt. So, what happens at the start of Finding Nemo? Well, it's pretty dark. Walt Disney films, Pixar films can be quite dark, and unfortunately, but then they change and it gets better. And because I was when I first went to see it, I was quite shocked at what happens at the start of the film, because you have a mother and father fish, Marlin and his wife, and they have thousands of baby eggs, and they get attacked. Marlin loves his wife, clearly. His wife, he ends up getting knocked out. His wife he can't find, she's disappeared, presumably eaten by the horrible fish that comes after them. I think it's a barracuda. And all the eggs have disappeared from below except for one, who is Nemo. Switching to Prince Siddhartha. So switching to Prince Siddhartha, the prince was brought up in a palace in northern India. Now, his father was given a prediction that he would either become a great king or he'd become a great religious leader. Now, the prince was kind of brought up in a very, very sheltered environment. His father basically wanted to protect him from suffering because his wife had died. So you can see the connection already. Nemo's mum dies, and the Prince Siddhartha lost his mother. Apparently, when Siddhartha was young, the king wouldn't allow any like dead leaves. If there was flowers kind of falling onto the ground, all these dead flowers, they would be swept away, so that the prince never saw kind of leaves that had gone mouldy. He hadn't seen things which is a natural part of nature, like in autumn the leaves fall off the trees and we have to kind of accept it. So coming back to Finding Nemo, has the same sort of experience as the prince. His father, because of what's happened to his mum, is extremely overprotective. Nemo is really embarrassed by his father taking him to school and kind of following him everywhere. And what happens in the end, his father tries to be overprotective. Nemo ends up so angry with him that he swims off, and then he gets caught. So even though the father's done his best to kind of overprotect him, he still ends up suffering. Now, the prince, when he was in the palace, decided one day. I forgot to mention. There were no old people in the palace either. None of the servants were old, so he never saw any old people. He just saw young servants. So then one day, he said to his charioteer Charna, "I want to go out and see what's outside." And the Charna said, "No, you can't. You don't want to see what's out there." And his father tried to persuade him not to go out, but the Buddha insisted. So the charioteer took him outside the palace. Now, the first thing that he saw was an old man, and the prince said, "Well, what's happened to his beard? Why is his beard white? Why has he got these kind of strange wrinkles on his face?" And Charna said to him, "Well, that guy is old. That it happens to everybody." And the prince is like, "What?" So then the next thing he saw was somebody who was sick, a beggar moaning on the street. Oh, the prince said, "I don't like his singing." Charna said, "He's not singing, he's moaning, he's like really, really ill. Anyone can get ill. Obviously there's viruses going around at the minute, like the coronavirus, and people will get worried about that." The third thing that he sees is a funeral procession. And he says to Charna, "How can that guy keep sleeping when everybody else is making so much noise around him because they're all crying because they're sad?" And Charna tells him, No, this man is dead. The life has left him." The Buddha says, "Well, does this happen to everyone?" And Charna's like, "Yes, of course." So the Buddha gets completely freaked out by what he sees outside of the palace. He's not the Buddha yet, he's still the prince. And the prince gets really freaked out by what he sees outside the palace and goes back and angrily talks to his father and says, "Why didn't you tell me what's going on out there?" The father kind of said to him, "Well, try not to worry about it, just stay in the walls of the palace and then you'll be okay." But the Buddha couldn't. He said, how can I be okay stuck in here when I know that I'm going to get old, I'm probably going to get sick at some point, and I'm eventually going to die. And his father didn't have an answer to that at the time. The fourth thing that the prince saw when he went outside was a holy man. And when he met this holy man, the holy man was just naked apart from like a small kind of cloth over his private parts. And he saw that this guy was kind of sitting down and he looked really peaceful and chilled out. And the prince said to him, he said, how are you so chilled out when there's all this suffering around you? And the man said, the holy man said, well, I'm searching for the truth, and the truth sets you free. So that's when the prince made the decision to leave the palace. He'd already woken up to the truth of suffering, but he hadn't become the Buddha just yet. He becomes the Buddha like maybe 6 years later. So hopefully you can see the connection between finding Nemo, because Marlin, as Nemo's dad, tries to overprotect his son. And that's what the film is about. The film is actually about Marlin more than Nemo. It's about Marlin's journey, learning to let go and accept that there is suffering in the world. So, just to conclude, the Buddha teaches the best way of being happy is to start off with the idea of I am suffering. So say something happens to you and you get like something bad, like a horrible illness, and you go, why me? Why have I got this? Oh no, 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 no. Well, the Buddha taught that rather than think I am suffering, think there is suffering. Look around you and all the things that are happening in the world. Like if you're living in this country, in the UK, we are not in a war zone. When we think, oh, I'm having a hard day today, we've got to think about, well, what about other parts of the world where people are starving? So if you can actually think about that, you won't suffer as much, because rather than moaning about your own situation and saying it's not fair, you actually kind of accept, well, everybody suffers and some people suffer more than others. I hope you've liked this video. I'll just conclude with just taking you back to the Buddha. I do love candles. Very excited to do my first Year 7 video. Poor unicorn kitty is suffering, ironically. Okay, so it's the movement from I am suffering to there is suffering, which is the first noble truth of Buddhism. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good day.